multiplier effect again is of the new apartment areas that are going up around the wet dock, bearing in mind it was largely a derelict site.
I don't
10
know
years ago.
myself. Obviously, you hit on the point there, that as we said earlier, that the port was moving of its own accord.
Yeah, and the
down
port
here.
was shifting
And
downstream.
so silos and other buildings were being left vacant, so something had to be done with them. And I think the general consensus was that waterfront development, mixed use, we would like to, we still push for mixed use now. We're very pleased to have got the university down here, the university building, because we don't want to see it residential, pure and simple. But the other thing, again, the compactness of the area and the traffic barriers apart. Obviously, another theme recently in planning has been accessibility, and that any housing built here is incredibly accessible in terms of the town centre facilities. You don't need a car if you live here. You can walk to the town centre. You can walk to the railway station to get on your train to go to wherever.
Say transport contributions from developers to help, say, run shuttle buses through this area, which doesn't exist at the moment.
So in terms of a location for housing, flood risk apart, it's pretty good.
Yeah,
Because,
it's sort of exciting.
Yeah, but
to what extent
Got about another 5 minutes, by the way, guys.
Oh, okay. To what extent is social, economic and environmental sustainability thought about in developing Ipswich?
A lot, increasingly, I would say. This whole plan process has had to be subject to, and that's another whole session with somebody else, the sustainability appraisal. And the town's policies are very much moving in that direction. We now ask developers of major housing schemes to achieve a certain level, code level, in Code for Sustainable Homes, which you might not know about. It's sort of the government's benchmarking system for sustainability generally for new built residential development. We ask them to achieve Code 3, which is actually quite challenging. Code 6 is carbon neutral. Also provide 10% of their predicted energy requirements on site from renewables. So we're forcing people to put solar panels and ground source heat pumps and what have you into their schemes. Our drainage engineers are pressing people very hard on sustainable drainage. So a lot of Ravenswood actually was a bit of an exemplar. You've got things called swales, big natural ponds that absorb. The problem with drainage is surface water runoff that comes out of the skies very quickly and tries to get into the sewers very quickly and causes flooding when the sewers fail. So sustainable drainage is all about attenuating drainage by holding it in ponds, making areas more permeable, making sure your front drive has got a permeable surface rather than tarmac off which the water just runs. The new university building, that's what I was going to say, has got a green roof, which we pushed them on and they were happy to do in the end, which has a lot of benefits in terms of biodiversity, because it's got plants on the roof and bugs can live on the plants and the birds can eat the bugs, and it also reduces the heat effect in that area of town, the so-called urban heat island. It's very good insulation and attenuates rainwater. When the rainwater falls on the roof, it takes a longer time to flow off. So green roofs, look out for more green roofs in Ipswich, we'd like more of those. But yeah, we are focused on sustainability, we have to be.
Is there somewhere on the website which would be like a pathway into all of this? Because you have to go through it very quickly.
Yeah, there's a lot of information on the planning policy. All these documents are there. I'm sure the sustainability appraisal will be there.
So Ipswich Borough Council Sustainability Google, that'll take us.
Well, if you go to the Ipswich Borough Council website and then planning and then planning policy, and it's all there. There's massive information there. We haven't got anyone here from the forward planning team because they are absolutely mown out at the moment on this plan. So they literally didn't have an hour.
It's consultation stage, just 6 weeks consultation.
Specifically to the waterfront development, if it's being aimed at young people, is it young buyers?
They're probably the prime target for the...
Will that lead to a single class community rather than a mixed one as you aimed for?
Well, I think it depends what you think.
It's certainly not family housing. That's
what you think,
yeah.
perhaps the market is, because obviously there are. I mean, the question I think probably is whether, to be candid, young first-time buyers would be able to afford it. I suspect possibly not, which is why some of the affordable housing is being built. But also, of course, the general social fabric of the country is changing with a larger number of single-person households, single-parent households, and so on. So I don't think it necessarily follows that it's necessarily young people. I think there are rather more people living on their own or living as couples rather than living as families.
Retirees who want to base in the UK and then buy a house in Spain. And a flat's much more secure than a house to leave for 9 months of the year or whatever. So there's that group as well. Yeah, it's the sort of social engineering side of it, which is what we're really talking about. We have got limited ability to influence that, I would say, under the British planning system. So we recognise the problems that you're sort of hinting at there in terms of the nature of this zone. You know, is it going to be monoculture flats? They don't seem to have a problem with the continent. People are much more used to living in apartments. Families live in apartments. I've got friends in Switzerland who live in an apartment as a family. It doesn't seem to happen here. Flats are seen as living accommodation, not for families, and that's a cultural thing.
They're not quite big enough.
Yeah.
But they often have insufficient storage space, for example. Sorry.
So it's tricky, that one. Yeah.
Yeah. When you get these ideas for development put to you, if you decide to go ahead with them, how long does it normally take for them to, go through the system and actually begin construction, or does that vary?
Well, it does vary. Once we've actually received what's called a valid application, say the one that we have all the information for, it should take 13 weeks. One of those big applications, small applications, we're supposed to deal with it within 8 weeks, and we generally speaking do. And we have to be fairly well geared up, because most of those big applications have a legal agreement attached to them, which then determines what additional contributions the developer makes to spend on. So if, for example, we've got a development on the waterfront and we're asking them to provide affordable housing, there will be a contribution for that. There will be a contribution towards the education system. There may well be a contribution for, say, alterations to the highway, or perhaps a bus route, or car clubs is something else we're also looking at as a way of something that started relatively recently, which is a car sharing arrangement. Now those require a quite complicated legal agreement. We have staff here in our legal department who are geared up to agree broadly what that agreement should cover, and get the developers, solicitors, and ourselves to agree that quite quickly, and all that's done within the 13 weeks. But what that doesn't allow for quite often are what is called pre-application discussions. In other words, the developer will just come in and they'll just say, I've just been looking at sites, I'm just interested in that site there, what can you tell me? And may get away for another year or more.
Well, you might get 4 or 5 different parties beating apart your door and going to quite detailed discussions with you before you get to a planning application.
I mean, on this scheme here, I think the discussions went on for what?
Best part of 2 years? Probably.
Almost 2 years, and because it's a complicated scheme and a lot of negotiations which have to take place separately. So as well as negotiations which the developer and his architect are doing with us, they will, for example, be talking separately to the Environment Agency about how they get rid of the flood.
Which was granted last August. They could virtually have been on site by now if they pulled all the stops out, but they haven't. And it's anybody's guess when they will.
And then they have 3 years effectively to carry that out, or they can apply to renew the approval for a further 3 years. It used to be 5 years. The government has shortened the timescale now in order to speed up development. So it can be anything between, well, sometimes they come out completely out of the blue, but they may take, say, 3 months, 6 months, 12 months pre-application, 13 weeks to actually determine the application, hopefully, and then up to 3 years to carry it out, or renew it, just allow it to roll on. So that's the kind of sort of timescale. So it's incredibly fluid.
Just a very quick question.
Yeah, we really haven't got to finish actually yet, but go on. Yeah.
What do you do with land which needs to be redeveloped but is undesirable? For example, the Odeon, former Odeon cinema, which seems to have been available for development for quite a long time.
Well, we don't own it, the Borough Council doesn't own it, so we're in the hands of the owners. And they wanted to convert it to, they got planning permission to convert it into a bowling alley and a sort of a niche nightclub, which I'd like to give a boxing ring. sorts of things. And they told us, yes, definitely going ahead, yes, you know, the planning committee thought it was quite a good idea, and apparently they sold it, you know, to somebody else. So it sits there, I'm afraid. We don't have the funds as a council